This is how to animate any character or object from Mario Kart Wii using BerryBush. Because animating your ball crate is like tearing your ACL. You're going to need some experience with Blender, of course. You're going to need some experience with Mario Kart Wii modding. And for this tutorial, I'm using RiiStudio. It's not necessary to use with BerryBush, but it just makes it easier, in my opinion, when you're setting up materials for your character or object. So for this tutorial, you're going to need Blender 3.4 or 3.3 because there's no latest version of BerryBush for Blender 4.0. And to get Blender 3.4 or 3.3 specifically, what you can do is you're going to go to the Blender site, blender.org. You're going to go to download, press looking for previous versions, download any Blender, scroll down to 3.3 or 3.4, and then you're going to select the installer of your choice for your operating system. As for BerryBush, you just Google BerryBush GitHub, and it'll take you to this page. What you do is you click here. It's 1.4.4 at the time of recording this video, and you just download this .zip file, and you go back to Blender, go to Edit, Preferences, go to Add-ons, go to Install, and go to the file directory where you downloaded BerryBush, and you just double-click this .zip file, or you can also select it and press Install Add-on. So once that's done, you just type in BerryBush, and it'll be unchecked when you do it. I already have it installed, so that's why it was checked for me. You just check it, and you're good to go. So we need a character to work with in this space. So what I'm going to do is import one from Mario Kart Wii, specifically the Pianta from GCN Peach Beach. Go file import, and then the file format is .dae for me, so I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to click this to click the model file of my choice. I'm just going to keep these default. Press import Collada, or just import for whatever file you have, and we can see that we have it here. The reason why the texture is showing up properly is because I already have it in the folder. You just have to switch to material to see it properly. But if you need to get the textures working, all you have to do is select the mesh and go to shader editor. Go here and just press open and find the texture in your directory, and just double click or just click and press select, I guess. And if your model has multiple textures, you have to select each region and do the same thing over and over again. So we can see this is getting there, but we need to have the alpha working for the leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this alpha from the base color node to the principal BFDF node. I'm going to connect them, and I'm going to scroll down here. Make sure you are in Eevee, by the way, to see the same settings as me. It doesn't matter which rendering engine you choose, but Cycles has a lot of other settings which we don't care about. We go, make sure this is selected, select blend mode, press alpha clip. And you can see that our character is looking better now. And you can see that the model already comes with a rig, but we're gonna start from scratch just for the tutorial. So if you want to do this, you just press A to select everything, and then press Alt P, and press Clear Keep Transformation. And this way you can get rid of the rig without defloatering your character or object. Okay, so we do not need this shader editor anymore, so we can just close it by dragging here and just dragging to the right. And now we have this mesh to work with. So I'm going to go back to solid mode. Material mode is mainly useful for, I guess, previewing your animation, but for most of the time we're going to be working in solid mode because you can press Alt Z or Z and go into transparency mode, and this is really useful because you want to see your bones inside the character when you're animating and rigging. So to make a new rig, we're going to start by pressing Shift A, and we're going to go to Armature and select it, and this will place the bone at the origin point, which is this red and white checkered circle with the axis sticking out of it. And we're going to move it to the middle because this is going to be our starting bone that will be in control of all the other bones. And the size of the bone doesn't really matter, but I like to keep it at a reasonable size to fit inside the mesh. And we need The next step is to have the character move along with this bone, because right now it's not really doing that. So the way you do that is you first select your character or object, and then you're going to select the bone by holding Shift and left clicking, and you're going to press Control P, and you're going to press arbitrary form with empty groups. So now you can see when I move this around, the character will move around as well. So that's just a good starting point to work with. So we need to build a skeleton for this character, and the way you decide on it is uh, depends on your animation. For this character, I want to make a walking animation, so I want to prioritize making a detailed, more or less, system for the arms and legs, and I don't really have to care about the torso piece or the center area or the face area, because those parts are not necessarily going to be animated that much. So you have to decide this in advance just to make your life a lot easier when you are rigging. So let's go ahead and make the skeleton system for this character uh, for the walking animation. So you have to go to edit mode. There's edit mode and post mode. Post mode is just for animating. Let's go to edit mode and start. So, like I said, the torso and the face are not really going to be animated, so I'm only going to create 2 bones. And the way to create a bone, but like that protrudes out of an existing bone, is to select the tail or the head, and then you press E to extrude. And what's really useful is holding down X, Y, or Z to lock it on a specific axis. I want this one to go up vertically, so I press down Z to lock it on the Z axis only. And this is just going to be this bone is just going to control the entire torso, and this is just the base bone where everything branches off out of. So now I want to start adding detail to the areas of interest on my character, particularly the arms and legs. And normally what you can do is have a bone that extrudes from here and goes down to the legs and keep doing that. But as you can see for this character, the arms and the legs are not actually connected to the torso. Like, these ones are just floating. These ones are just like slightly shoved inside the torso without any actual connection to it. So in this case, we don't want to have like bones that are connecting out from the base. We just want separate arm and leg structures. So what we can do to create a new one without having it be connected to another one is to press Shift D while selecting one, and then, like I said, locking on the X and Y and Z axis is very useful in this case. So we're locking on the X axis only, and we want the bone to be pointing in the direction of the leg, because it'll make it so much easier when you're animating it. So what we do is you can press R to rotate it on the X or Y axis and type in your value, which is 180, or you can rotate it without having to type in a value, just when typing value it's a lot more precise. Or what you can do is you can grab the tip and then you can press G and then move it down like this, and that's another way. But I like having all the bones to be the same size for consistency as much as I can. So I'm just going to rotate it 180 degrees. Then I'm going to press G and then move it down on the Z axis, and that's going to be our thigh bone. You do need a little bit of anatomy understanding for this, but not too much. What I sometimes do is just like move my leg around in real life and look like an idiot, but it'll help me kind of understand how the human legs work. So this is the thigh bone, and there's going to be this knee joint, and that's going to go to another bone, which is the leg. So we're just going to create another bone for the leg right here. And last but not least, we have the foot. So we're going to extrude the bone again down here, and we want the bone to be in the direction of the foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press G, and I'm going to press Shift Z, so it locks it on the Z axis. In other words, it's not moving on the Z axis; it's only moving on the X and Y. And this is really useful because it keeps it from going vertically. We only want it to go in this direction. We don't care about verticality here. You can also do this with Shift Y or Shift X to lock it on the Y and X axis respectively, but I use Shift Z the most. And you can see that the boat is kind of sticking out a little bit, and to make it easy to animate, we want to be more or less in the center of the foot, and that is one of our legs done. It'll of course depend on what kind of character or object you're animating, but this is just for this character. And what we can do to save time is we can select all of these buttons by selecting the first one, and you can either press Control and left click, and it'll select all the bones in the chain, or you can press Shift, hold down Shift, and you can select each one in the chain, but you can also do Control. And you might be thinking, for people who are more experienced with Blender, that you can just use the mirror modifier here, but that's great if you have your own mesh to work with, and I'm not an expert in that, but as you can see with this mesh, when I go into edit mode, the shortcut is by pressing tab. You don't have to go up here. You can see that it's not necessarily symmetrical in the center. You have this triangle, and then you have this squared stuff. It's not like split down the middle. It would have to look something like this for it to work properly. And this mesh does not have it, so I'm just going to do everything manually. It's not like it's the end of the world, because this is a very simple character. So I'm going to select the armature and go back into edit mode, and I'm going to press Alt-Z so it's transparent and we can see everything again. And I'm going to press Shift-D, move it on the X-axis, get it about where I want it, and then to mirror it perfectly, I'm going to press Control-M, and then press X to mirror it on the X-axis. And you might have to adjust the position again, but this is really good for mirroring properly. And now we want to move on to the arms, so I'm going to start with the left arm. Like I said, I'm going to press Shift-D, move it on the X-axis, move it up here, and I want this to be pointing in the direction of the arm, so horizontally, so I'm going to move this out right to where the elbow is, around here, and I'm going to move the head down and extrude it a little bit, and make sure it's, like I said, parallel to the direction the mesh is pointing, so in case the forearm or the biceps. And now we move this bone out here, press Shift-C so it doesn't move downward accidentally. And let's make sure it goes all the way up to the hand, and we can move it up to the hand now, create a new goal for the hand. And I'm not going to bother with the thumbs or the fingers because there aren't any fingers, it's more or less a glove. Some characters, more complex characters will have individual finger bones, but we don't need that in this case, and it's probably not a good idea to have that much detail in your character in Mario Kart Wii. And like I said, we can just hold Shift and select all these. Another option is to box select by pressing B and dragging. You can also press C to spray paint select or circle select, and you can it's just whatever selection choice you want. And we're just going to press Shift T to duplicate this, go to the other side, press Control M, mirror it on the X-axis, and get it sort of where we want it to be. So this is really good. And yeah, that's our character. It's a very simple rig, and that's the beauty of doing it for Mario Kart Wii. You don't need super complex rig. The next part is going to be naming all your bones properly. This is really important to be organized, and it's going to help you a lot when you're animating. And a good thing to do is to have a systematic naming scheme for your bones. So I'm going to go through that right now. An easy way to rename something quickly is to select it, and you press F2, and you just name it whatever you want. So this is the left leg of the character, and what I'm going to do is press F2 to rename, and type in leg, L1. L is left, and 1 is just first bone in the chain. Then I'm going to do the same here, leg underscore L2. Then not F3, F2, leg underscore L3. It doesn't have to be like leg, left thigh, left leg, left foot. That'd be kind of unwieldy. Let's go to the right side and do the same thing. Leg underscore R1, leg underscore R2, leg underscore R3. And we're gonna name this one base. This is the base bone where everything comes from, and it's just like the root bone that controls the whole character's position. And this is the torso bone. I'm just gonna name it torso. In the title files, you'll see it's called SKL root. I guess that means skeleton root. It can just be whatever you want, but I'm just gonna call it base. And this is left arm. I'm gonna do the same naming scheme. It's gonna be arm L1, arm underscore L2, and on F3, arm underscore L3. And we're going to do the right side now, arm underscore R1, arm underscore R2, and arm underscore R3. So yeah, that's the whole naming system. And to make sure that your bones are parented properly, parenting is just where you make sure all the bones in the chain like control each other properly. We can go here. We can click this drop down arrow. Click here. We can see that leg L1 and leg R1 are not parented to this base. So like when I move this base around, it's not going to move the legs. We want everything to be connected to this root bone. And the way you do that is you go to edit mode. You're going to select this bone first, and then you select the root bone. And you press Control P and make parent and keep offset. And you do the same thing here. Select this one, Control P, keep offset. And now you can see when we go to pose mode, the whole skeleton will move. And that's what we want. So even though we have a spooky, scary skeleton, we can see that it does not move with the character, or rather the character does not move with the skeleton. So how do we go about making sure everything is properly rigged? So the next part is called weight painting, and it's where you assign vertices of your mesh to specific bones. Like I want the vertices of this foot to move along with this bone. So we're going to do that next. And it's really good practice to have good topology with your characters because it'll make weight painting a lot easier. So let's go to edit mode, and in Mario Kart Wii, like weight painting is usually vertices are usually either red or blue. There usually isn't like a middle section, or at least with my characters that I rig. Like if I change this to the weight of this brush, you can see it's green, but usually I just keep it red because I just want the bones to like influence all the vertices completely and not partially, just to make it simple. So we're not going to use this weight paint mode. This is really annoying to work with. So the easier way is to go into edit mode by when you first select your object, go to edit mode, and you can press Alt-Z to get out of transparency mode if it's too weird to look at. But this is really useful when you're weight painting, so you don't miss out any vertices. You're just gonna select all your vertices. I'm gonna use circle select because it's very useful here. I'm just gonna paint over all the vertices I want that I want to be controlled with the foot bone. So you can see when I go to vertex groups, this is what we want to be. That there are some leftover groups from when I imported the model, and to get rid of them, you just press minus on all of them. And we want to start with like base site. So vertex groups are just, I guess, groups of vertices. I know, very self-explanatory. So you just press plus to create a new group, and we want to create a group for this foot, and it has to be the exact same name as the foot bone, or else it won't recognize it. So we name the foot leg underscore, or this is L3, sorry. So once you have the vertex group, you just press assign, and now when I go into pose mode with the armature, you can see that the bone will move the vertices properly, and this is a good start, and we want to do this for every single bone in the character's body. An important thing to note is that vertex or vertices cannot be in more than one group. Like these vertices cannot be in the same group as link underscore L2, or else it'll corrupt your character really bad in games. And I'm just gonna edit the topology here a little bit to make it easier to bring the leg bone. So I'm just gonna subdivide it, and I press select this vertex, select this vertex, and select this vertex. Press J to join them. And I'm gonna do the same thing here, and that just makes it easier to work with. I'm gonna do the other side here. Right here, right click, subdivide, select this vertex, press J. Same thing on this side. And yeah, that just makes it less awkward. So what I'm going to do for the next bone, leg underscore L2, is select this edge set, and I'm going to press plus to create a new group, leg underscore L2, that's the name of it, and then I'm going to press assign. And now to just show you again, now that when I move this bone, it's going to move the leg properly. Yeah, just go through the whole mesh and do all of this, and make sure that no vertex is in more than one group. So I'm just gonna do a time lapse of myself rigging this character properly, and I'll get back to you. A really useful thing, if you don't have emulate numpad enabled, is you can switch between vertex, edge, and face select mode by pressing 1, 2, or 3. Another useful selection tool is selecting a face anywhere and pressing Ctrl L to select all faces that are connected to that. You can also do that with vertices or edges. It's really useful. Okay, so that should be everything. Quick way to check if you rigged everything and make sure that there are no vertices that share groups is to go into weight paint mode, and we're gonna just click the first one on the list, first vertex group, and we're gonna just press down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, over and over and over again. Just as a quick check to make sure we've animated everything properly. You can see that I forgot to press assign on this arm, so I'm going to do that really quickly. And yeah, now let's check the other side. I forgot to rig the entire right arm. Okay, let's pretend that didn't happen, and I'll R2 to 3, so yeah, everything's rigged. And now go to mode, pose mode, and we'll remove any bone. We can see that the corresponding geometry will also move properly with it. And yeah, this is what we want to see. Unless I've missed the bone or vertex here. Okay, there we go, much better. So a really useful concept when animating characters especially is inverse kinematics. And to start, I'll just show you that when we move this foot bone, we don't see that any of other of the bones moving, even though they should. Like when you move your foot, you're not thinking, oh, I have to first move my leg or my thigh, and then I have to move my leg, and then I have to rotate my foot properly. You just move your foot, and then your bones will move accordingly to wherever you desire. And the way to replicate this modeling software is called inverse kinematics, and it basically affects the chain, the behind the bone when you move it. So let's try it here with auto OK. Now when we move this foot, you can see that it moves a lot more naturally than with forward kinematics, which was this. And yeah, this is very useful. What I do with the hand, for example, you can see that the arm moves a lot more smoothly and naturally, and this will make animating so much easier. So the proper way of doing inverse kinematics is actually through here, but admittedly, I'm not really good at it, and this requires all the bones to be connected, or else it'll mess up really badly. So for our purposes, I'm just going to be using auto IK from here, and yeah, that's good enough for me. So, like I said, I want to make a walking animation for this character, and to do that, we're going to need this timeline. If you don't see it here, if your blender just looks like this, you just drag it up from here, and go here, and go to timeline. You can, these letters that are underscored mean you can press that specific letter to go to that option quickly. Just press L for timeline, and yeah. And we're also going to need another one called the nonlinear animation. Just click that, and that'll be useful for later. Great, so how do we actually start animating this guy? First, we need to make sure that this is checked, or enabled rather, and we want to start on frame 1, and we need to make sure that the output is 60 FPS because Mario Kart Wii runs at 60 FPS, and now we can start. So this character's feet are pointed in opposite directions, and when you're walking, your feet are usually going straight in the direction that you are going. So to start, I'm just going to make sure that these feet are pointed in the direction that I want, and yeah, that looks better. And unless you're trying to relive 2018, you don't T-pose while walking, so I'm going to move this guy's arms down, just like this, and you can see that this is a really good starting pose to work with. And now I'm just going to depend on what animation you're doing for your specific character, but now I'm going to start, I'm going to go to frame 30, let's say. You can always move these keyframes around if it's too slow or too fast. And actually, it would be better to start the walking animation on frame 1 rather than just being in a standing position, because it'll loop better if it's just like the character's already mid-step when the animation starts. So I'm going to move this foot out, and I'm going to try to get to be here, because when you're walking, your foot usually raises up before you take the step. And we're going to move this foot, and we're going to make sure that it's rotated. This is more or less just kind of like improvising. I didn't have a script or anything for this, so I'm just going to work with it. Let's move this so it's facing forward, and you can see that there's some clipping issues here. That's just how it is for this character. If I wanted to, I would have made a more complex wig for the middle part, but I didn't because I'm lazy. So I'm not going to worry about it that much. So yeah, this is a good starting position. And usually when people walk, their arms swing, and it's usually in the opposite direction of the foot that's going forward. So it's like this, and like this. And yeah, this is a pretty good starting position. So now I'm going to go to, let's say, frame 30. Like I said earlier, before I made the mistake, you can just move the keyframes around if it's too slow or too fast. So now on frame 30, I'm going to change the feet to be in opposite directions, as well as the arms. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. Make sure the feet are like properly pointed. There's all these all these constraints that you can add if you're really good at this kind of stuff, and I'll show you how to add these constraints so that they work properly in game later. So what was I? Okay, yeah, so right here. Actually, this arm should be this way, and this arm should be that way. Also, I'm going to move this on a little bit. I'm going to go back to edit mode. I'm going to move this on a little bit inside. Not edit mode, pose mode, I think. Turn off auto IK. I'm going to move this on a little bit inside the character so you don't see the hole. Let's try that again. Get a little bit here. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Let's go for 30, and let's have the arms go to the other side now. And we're gonna have it over here. Let's make sure it doesn't go inside the torso side of that torso piece that much. And I want to make sure. I think this part is just kind of a fundamental problem with the character because it's not really just designed with like a walking animation in mind. So I'm not gonna fumble around with that for the purposes of this tutorial. And so great, we have 2 steps in, and we're just gonna loop it. And the best way to loop it animation is to go to the start keyframe, and press Control C to copy everything. With this marker on the end keyframe of whatever your animation is, you just press Control V, and it'll copy the animation properly. So let's see how this looks in object mode. Before we do that, I need to specify that you can specify the end frame. By default, it's 250, but we have 60 frame animation, so it should start always on frame 1. I never changed this because why would you? And you could, but you always change this to whatever the animation like this. So let's see how it looks. So you can see it's not bad, but usually when people walk, their torso kind of moves up and down a little bit. And we want to, let's do that here so it looks a bit more natural. And you can also see that the foot is kind of clipping inside the ground. It's usually a good idea to have your characters like or object right at the origin, so it's just easier when you're placing them down in the KMP editor. So let's go back and fine tune the animation a bit to reflect the torso thing I was talking about, as well as this. So let's go here and frame 15 where its foot is like right inside the ground. Let's move it up a little bit. This one's a bit better. I'm not going to change it. Let's go to the torso, and as always, make a keyframe on frame 1. Okay, you can see that it moves with the base, and we don't want the whole character like rotating and stuff. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Now we're going to go to edit mode, and we're going to disconnect this bone from the base. So let's just do that. Shift to select this one, shift to select the base, Alt P, and clear, and not clear, but disconnect bone. So now let's go back into pose mode, and let's turn off auto IK. And you can see that the torso moves around by itself now. It doesn't matter if auto IK is turned on or off actually. So let's create a keyframe on frame 1. Let's go, I guess, to frame 30, move it up a little bit, and go to frame 60. Like I said, best way to create a seamless loop is to copy all the keyframes from frame 1, copy it to your end frame, and let's see it now. Okay, so this is not bad at all for our purposes. And let's check in material mode. Yeah, this is pretty good for this character. So great, this is our animation. So now that our character is animated, let's get him working in Mario Kart Wii. So by default, if you click this arrow, go to animation, it's going to be called arbitrary action by default. In Mario Kart Wii, like animations have to be named very specific names in order to work properly. So if I remember properly, then I'm just gonna call it walk for now. I don't remember the exact name from the file, but for the tutorial it doesn't really matter. The model should be named whatever the BRRES file is. So this is Monte underscore A for this specific file. This would be better for an object with a root, but I'm just going to use this for now. So the way you get the animation properly working is we go back to the nonlinear animation. Remember I said this was going to be important later. Press this drop down arrow and there it's stored properly. And we want this animation to loop. So to do that, you have to go to action on this side panel here. If it's not there, you just press N to have it activate. Go to the side panel, just go to manual frame range and press cyclic animation. To see your animation like keyframes again, you should go create a new window, go to dope sheet, change it to action editor, and then select your animation. And yeah, this is what we want. So before we export it, we have to do something. We have to bake this animation because with object constraints, like inverse kinematics, if I go into pose mode with the armatures and I select, I only animate the hands and feet. You can see the keyframes on frame 1, frame 30, and frame 60. So if I go to the arms, you can see that there is no animation data for it. Like right here, you can see that there's no animation data for here or for here. It's only for the hands and feet. So if you try to import this in game without any without baking the action first, it's gonna see that there's no animation for the animation data for the arms and legs, and these are just gonna be standstill. So how do we go ahead and bake this? So let's select the whole skeletal structure in pose mode by pressing A. Let's go to pose, let's go to animation, and let's go to bake action. And I guess only selected bones is not necessary if you didn't select everything. But it's very important to press visual keying. Clear current and clear parents, I wouldn't do that. Override current action, definitely not. Clean curves, I'm not sure. I think that would probably interfere with the animation. It might like inadvertently remove keyframes you want, so I'm just going to keep these. I'm going to press OK. And you can see that it has a keyframe for every bone on every frame. And you can see how this can become kind of complex really fast. So don't have like too many characters animated at once, I guess, in a single file. So great, now that that's animated, let's have this push back down. I'm not an expert entirely on what's happening here, but this is a new animation with all the bones baked, and this is the old one. I think we can get rid of the old one by just pressing right clicking, or not clicking, you just press delete and press delete here. And let's create this one. I guess you can save a backup file if you want of the old animation, because once you bake the animation, you can't really go back. So yeah, just save the old animation first. Ask for multiple animations in one file. I could not get it working properly when I was doing it, so I just created a .blend file for every animation I wanted. And I would just go into Brawl Crate and export the animations and import them into the file, into one BRRES file using Brawl Crate. But for now, we're just going to use a single animation. So now this is pushed down. We can export this, and we're going to go to export binary revolution resource.bres. You need to have this. Now let's change the scale to 100. It always has to be 100 for Mario Kart Wii because that's just the ratio of Blender units to Mario Kart Wii units. Let's just name this walk. I don't want to overwrite the original file in case I need it, and everything else can be left default. Let's try to export it. You can see that I get 2 warnings, and this might happen with a character that you made yourself. So let's let's export it again and click on that icon and see what the wordings are. So we click here, and we can see that the UV map and in the BRRES file is not the same as the one in the Blender file, and there's no shader. So if you try to ignore these errors and try to import it into RiiStudio anyway, or Crate, I guess, it's going to crash or fail. So we need to do a little bit of material setup in BerryBush for a bit. The thing with BerryBush is that you have to create your materials from scratch, and I don't know, and that's not ideal because I already have the material from the imported character, and I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel here. So I'm just gonna have it imported into RiiStudio and work from there. So we go to change it to BerryBush. You go to this TV icon, change it to BerryBush, and let's go down here to fix the UV name mismatch. So you can see that this and this are not the same name, but they have to be the same name. So let's fix that really quickly. And let's go to materials and create a new TEV configuration that's just a shader. And now if we try to export it, let's try it now. You can see that we no longer have any warnings. Great. So let's go into RiiStudio and give this guy the proper materials that he needs. So in RiiStudio here, I've never used it before. To open the BRRES file, you just go File, Open, go navigate to where it is on your computer, click Open or double click, and you can see it has all these warnings, but this is because RiiStudio at the time of recording does not recognize messages or characters with more than one bone and doesn't have proper bone animation implemented into it, so we can just ignore all these errors. They're not gonna matter. It's not like Crate where it'll corrupt your bones structure. So you can see that we have the character here, and it matches the BerryBush preview, which is kind of cool. But like I said, I'm just gonna do it here. So this character uses the same material as the Pianta from GCN Peach Beach, and I'm gonna go get the material from that character really quickly, and let's do that here. So to do it with RiiStudio, you just click on the material, expand this arrow if you have to, and press Export Preset. I think you can also right-click. Sorry, I think you can also right-click and create material preset, but I'm not sure if that does the same thing. I already have it here, but I'm just gonna save it again. Now let's go back into our other file right here. Let's press Import Preset. Let's click the preset we want, press Open or double click. And you can see that even though it doesn't look the same as the one in the original file, it did all the material work for us. This is why I really like RiiStudio. You don't have to manually set up each material. And yeah, that's our character more or less done. The only thing left to do now is to rename the model and the BRRES file as well as the animations to the default ones with the file that you're going to replace. Like if I replace the car animation, the car file, I need the BRRES file to have the same name as the original one, the model to have the same name as the original model, the original, I guess, car in my example, and then the animations to be the same names as the car animations. And that's really important when you're modding Mario Kart Wii because it will just crash otherwise. So I'm just gonna put this character over the skyship object, and if there's a file that you're replacing with no original animation, the proper way to do it is to have the animation be the same name as the file name. Sometimes some objects don't support animations, but that's just something you cannot do anything about. So just choose wisely when you're animating objects. Okay, at the time, RiiStudio does not support renaming character animations apparently, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back into Blender. I'm gonna rename this to Skyship because I'm just gonna replace that object, and I'm gonna export it again and re-import the material, and yeah, I'll just get back to you. Okay, so now I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna go into course, and I'm just gonna change. I'm just gonna put the Skyship object in here. Skyship is just the name of this because, yeah, like I said, it has to be the default name of the file that you're replacing. Skyship is just the airship from Luigi Circuit, by the way. Now, I guess I'm gonna go into KMP editor, and now I'm going to put it in. I'm gonna load the file first, or like not the KMP file, the quest that I'm replacing, and I'm gonna go objects. I'm gonna create one here. I need to look up the KMP object ID of this object really quickly. Let's go type in Skyship. And Lorenz's KMP editor, you use the decimal ID, so let's copy that. There we go. And you can see that we only need the BRRES file. This site is a little bit outdated. There's another one called I Love Nintendo and Their Easy to Use Objects by Gabriela, I think, and probably a bunch of other authors that I'm not aware of. And they have all the settings here because this one's outdated, like I said, and there's some settings that are wrong. So if I go to Skyship, I go to settings, I'll just make sure that my cursor is selected here, press Control F, and then type in Skyship. There we go. And there's not any difference here, but it's just better to use this rather than this the KP object query. The link to this will be in the description. Okay, speed, I'm just gonna set to, I don't know, 30, and max Y difference, I'm just gonna keep it as is. But this needs a root, so I'm gonna add one. I'm just gonna have it go in a circle. This should be back and forth motion, this recycle motion. I think the settings are the wrong way around. Whatever, I can't do anything about it. Yeah, that should be it. This, as long as you have the necessary files in your track folder and you create this SES with Woon's SES tools, everything should be okay. So let's do that now. Okay, now let's open Dolphin. This is just where I test a bunch of objects, see how they interact with each other. But as you can see over here, our character's animation is working perfectly, and this is exactly what we want to see. The model material is working properly as well. That's the beauty of RiiStudio. You can just import materials without having to make them from scratch. So yeah, I hope you found this animation tutorial useful, and just give it a like if you found it useful. Subscribe if you're feeling bold, and yeah, happy modding.